comparative analysis of Rapunzel and Tangled. We start off with Rapunzel. It's a fairy tale created by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm in 1812 in their book Children's and Household Tales. A quick summary of Rapunzel by the Grimm brothers. The tale starts by giving the reader insight into the life of a couple living in a village where they attempt pregnancy multiple times to no avail. In an attempt to satisfy his wife's desire, the husband steals Rapunzel, a type of lettuce, from a sorceress's garden, where he eventually is caught. The couple is forced to give their daughter away to the sorceress, who names the baby Rapunzel. She is locked in a tower for her whole life, where she grows long hair for the sorceress to gain access in and out of the tower. One day, a prince on his horse hears her beautiful voice singing. Eventually, he can get into the tower, and it is love at first sight. Promising Rapunzel he will help her escape, and they will live happily ever after. This is until the sorceress finds out about Rapunzel's plan to escape. When the prince comes back, he is surprised by the sorceress, and she explains to him that Rapunzel is gone forever. Overcome with sadness, he jumps from the tower and falls into a thorn bush, where both of his eyes are pierced, and he becomes blind. He miserably wanders the forest for years until he hears a familiar voice. It is Rapunzel with the twins she had birthed. As they reunite, Rapunzel's tears fall into the prince's eyes, and he regains his vision. After all of these adversaries, they can live happily ever after in rule of his kingdom. Moral of Rapunzel. I noticed throughout the tale that it includes a lot of fatalism. This could be due to the Grimm brothers' religious beliefs. Therefore, I believe the moral of the story to be that what's meant to be is meant to be, and no matter how many adversaries and challenges you might face, you will get what life has in store for you. Some historical context behind this tale. Many argue that this tale is loosely based on Saint Barbara, a girl who was born during the mid-3rd century in Eastern Europe to a wealthy father. Afraid of what her future could become due to her beauty, and afraid that she would turn to Christianity, her father locked her away in a tower. This further proves my reasoning on the sense of fatalism throughout this tale. Some evidence behind my claim. We see the fatalism very early on, when Rapunzel's mother faces fertility concerns, eventually becoming pregnant. Grimm says, "But to no avail, wished for a child. Finally, the woman came to believe that the good Lord would fulfill her wish." Next, we see Rapunzel's father is successful in stealing Rapunzel from the sorceress's garden, but his luck only works once. As Grimm states, "Thus he set forth once again, just as it was getting dark. But no sooner than he had climbed over the wall, than to his horror he saw the sorceress standing there before him." Next, later on in the tale, we see the king's son happens to be riding through the forest and hears Rapunzel's voice. Eager to meet her, he looks for a way into the tower, with no success. Grimm continues, "A king's son was riding through the forest. As he approached the tower, he heard a song so beautiful that he stopped to listen. It was Rapunzel, who was passing time by singing with her sweet voice. The prince wanted to climb up to her and looked for a door into the tower, but none was to be found." Lastly, further on towards the end of the tale, the prince lands into a thorn bush and both of his eyes are pierced, leaving him blind. As per Grimm, the prince was overcome with grief, and in his despair he threw himself from the tower. He escaped with life, but the thorn into which he fell poked out his eyes. Next, we move on to Tangled, a contemporary version of this tale. It's an animated movie directed by Nathan Greno and Bryon. It was distributed by Walt Disney Pictures on November 24th, 2010. A brief summary of Tangled. It begins with the king and queen's newborn being stolen by a witch, Mother Gothel, and taken to live in a tower due to her hair's magical abilities to keep her young. As Rapunzel turns 18, she yearns to explore the outdoors, especially the flying lanterns, which, unbeknownst to her, is the kingdom's tradition to release lanterns on the lost princess's birthday. When she meets Flynn Rider, a wanted man who stumbles upon her tower in an attempt to evade the authorities, they then embark on a journey together. Moral of Tangled. I believe the moral of this film is to teach young girls that they can be strong and fend for themselves, and to teach young boys that they do not need to do any saving to girls, and it is okay to show their vulnerabilities and emotions. Some evidence on my claim. Flynn Rider makes his way into Rapunzel's tower instead of talking to him like in the Grimm's Brothers version. Rapunzel immediately knocks him unconscious with a frying pan. It is successful at showcasing her personality. She is strong and quick to act. We then see Rapunzel has mixed emotions when she leaves the tower with Flynn. One moment she's euphoric, and the next she is crying, telling Flynn that Mother Gothel will be upset if she finds out she has left the tower. As per the film, I can't believe I did this. Mother would be so furious. That's okay, I mean what she doesn't know wouldn't kill her. Later in the film, Flynn and Rapunzel stumble into a pub where the patrons notice Flynn is a wanted criminal. Rapunzel uses her hair to get their attention by wrapping it around a branch that hits one of the pub's customers. More importantly, she demonstrates her emotional intelligence by telling them, "Find your humanity." She then asks them, "Haven't you ever had a dream?" which prompts them all to tell her what their dream is. Thanks to Rapunzel, they are eventually let off the hooks, and the guys from the pub even help them escape through an underground tunnel. This exact scene is also very good at showing the patrons' emotions. Although they seem very manly, as they are Vikings, tall and muscular, their dreams are not what society associates with manliness. Lastly, when Flynn and Rapunzel are running away from the guards, and the guys that assisted in Flynn stealing the crown from the palace, water from a dam begins to fill up the cave with no exit. Flynn and Rapunzel are worried that this is their fate, and in a moment of vulnerability, Flynn tells Rapunzel that his real name is Eugene, after she had asked earlier in the film what his name was and he did not tell her. This scene does an excellent job of showing young boys that contrary to the mold society creates for them to be rigid, cold, and emotionless, it is okay to show your emotions. Analyzing some differences between the two versions of this tale, in Rapunzel by the Grimm's Brothers, we see more examples of how gender roles impact both versions of this tale. In Tangled, Princess Rapunzel is a smart and witty character, but in Grimm's version of the tale, she fits the stereotype of a dumb blonde. The most obvious change is that Disney makes sure Princess Rapunzel is seen as strong and assertive, which we see very early on in the film. When Flynn Rider evades the authorities and eventually stumbles upon Rapunzel's tower, she is initially scared, as she has never been outside of the tower, and whips out a frying pan and knocks him unconscious. This is very different from Rapunzel by the Grimm's Brothers. As they state, the hair fell down and the prince climbed up. At first, Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man, such as she had never seen before, came into the tower. However, the prince began talking to her in a friendly manner, telling her that his heart has been so touched by her singing that he could have no peace until he had seen her in person. Overall, when comparing in what direction the Grimm brothers and Disney went when producing these two very distinct versions of the tales, one component stood out: gender. As we know, there are many gender roles and stereotypes that are ever evolving in today's society. So these two versions kind of fit in when they were made. I can imagine that the Grimm's brothers version in 1812 fit society's gender roles of a man having to save a woman and his strength and courage, whereas Disney went kind of in an opposite direction, showing that women too can be strong and assertive, and all of these characteristics that are encapsulated by Princess Rapunzel's character.